On January 28, 1977, Buffalo, New York, a city engineered for harsh winters with snowplows, salt reserves, and established protocols for lake-effect storms, entered a period of near-total immobilization. The event was not defined by record snowfall accumulation, but by sustained wind velocities exceeding 60 miles per hour, sub-zero temperatures, and continuous whiteout conditions that prevented movement, emergency response, and infrastructure operation for multiple days. Buffalo's winter infrastructure in January 1977 included a municipal fleet of over 200 snowplows, multi-shift crews trained for lake-effect snow events, and a population accustomed to seasonal storms averaging 90 inches annually. Road networks were designed with drainage and snow removal protocols. Emergency services operated with cold weather equipment. Commercial sectors maintained heating fuel reserves. The city's position on Lake Erie's eastern shore made wind-driven snow a routine condition, typically managed through continuous plowing and traffic control during active precipitation. Residential areas maintained snow removal equipment. Schools and businesses operated winter contingency schedules. The Erie County Highway Department coordinated with state transportation authorities on arterial road maintenance. Most infrastructure components were rated for temperatures below zero and wind-driven snow conditions lasting 24 to 48 hours under normal operational parameters. The metropolitan area contained approximately 1.2 million residents across the city and surrounding suburbs. Transportation networks included Interstate 90, state routes, and urban arterials designed with winter operation as baseline expectation. Public Works departments maintained salt stockpiles sufficient for multiple storm cycles. Buffalo had experienced blizzard conditions in previous decades without prolonged citywide shutdown. The operational assumption was that mechanical snow removal would maintain mobility during any storm event of finite duration. Between January 26th and 27th, an Arctic high-pressure system moved south from central Canada, dropping surface temperatures across western New York to between -10 degrees Fahrenheit and 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Barometric pressure gradients steepened as the cold air mass collided with relatively warmer air over Lake Erie. Atmospheric instability increased. By the morning of January 28th, sustained northwest winds reached 35 to 45 miles per hour across the Buffalo metropolitan area, with gusts exceeding 60 miles per hour recorded at Buffalo-Niagara International Airport. The temperature remained below 0 degrees Fahrenheit for extended periods. Lake Erie, partially ice-covered, generated moisture that fed into the Arctic airstream. The pressure differential between the Arctic high and a low-pressure system to the southeast maintained wind flow without interruption. Forecasts identified the system as severe but comparable to previous lake effect events in intensity. The duration and consistency of wind velocity, however, exceeded typical storm patterns. Wind chill values dropped to -50 to -60 degrees Fahrenheit in exposed areas. The fetch across Lake Erie remained aligned with Buffalo's position, creating continuous moisture supply to the northwest wind corridor. Atmospheric conditions stabilized in a configuration that prevented the typical movement or weakening of winter storm systems. Temperature readings at ground level remained between -5 degrees Fahrenheit and 5 degrees Fahrenheit throughout January 28th and 29th. Wind speeds sustained at gale force without significant interruption from January 28th through February 1. Measured velocities at official weather stations ranged from 40 to 50 miles per hour continuously, with peak gusts recorded at 69 miles per hour. The persistence of wind eliminated the recovery intervals normally present in winter storms. Previous blizzards in the region had featured wind bursts followed by calmer periods, allowing snow removal operations to gain ground. The 1977 event produced no such intervals. Wind direction remained locked in the northwest quadrant, pulling air across the unfrozen portions of Lake Erie and driving it directly into the Buffalo urban core. The sustained nature of the wind prevented snow from settling. Ground-level airflow reached sufficient velocity to mobilize snow already on the ground from previous January storms. Approximately 12 inches of snow had accumulated in the Buffalo area between January 1 and January 27. This existing snowpack became mobile under continuous wind stress. The mechanical force applied by 40-plus mile-per-hour winds moved snow horizontally rather than allowing vertical accumulation. Structures, vehicles, and terrain features created turbulence zones where wind velocity decreased momentarily, causing rapid deposition. Drifts formed and reformed continuously as wind patterns shifted around obstacles. Snow redistribution occurred at rates exceeding the capacity of plowing equipment to manage. Drifts exceeding 20 feet in height formed against buildings, highway embankments, and vehicles within hours. Roadways cleared by plows refilled within 15 to 30 minutes. The volume of snow in motion was not primarily new precipitation, but existing surface snow cycled repeatedly through the air. Visibility conditions made it impossible for plow operators to identify road edges, lane markings, or obstacles. Snow grain size remained small due to extreme cold, allowing wind to transport particles more efficiently. Surface friction decreased as loose snow covered compacted snow and ice layers. The wind's fetch across open terrain between Lake Erie and the city center created unobstructed corridors where snow movement accelerated. Urban areas with dense building networks experienced variable drift patterns based on street orientation and structural geometry. North-south streets aligned with wind direction filled rapidly. East-west streets functioned as drift collection zones. Intersections became impassable as snow accumulated in turbulence zones created by building corners. Highway systems designed for drainage and visibility became snow channels. Interstate 90, the New York State Thruway, filled with drifts ranging from 10 to 30 feet in depth across multiple miles. Vehicle abandonment began when drifts immobilized cars and trucks mid-transit. Abandoned vehicles became new drift nucleation points, accelerating snow accumulation on roadways. Visibility dropped to zero across the metropolitan area for sustained periods beginning January 28. Whiteout conditions were not intermittent but continuous, lasting hours without break. The combination of airborne snow, ground-level snow transport, and lack of contrast between ground and sky eliminated all visual reference points. Streetlights became invisible beyond 10 to 15 feet. Vehicle headlights reflected off airborne snow particles without penetrating forward. Pedestrians reported disorientation within seconds of leaving structures. The density of suspended snow particles exceeded the threshold for human spatial orientation. Emergency vehicles equipped with light bars and sirens became undetectable beyond 1 block. Radio communication remained functional but provided no solution to navigation failure. Drivers attempting to follow roads drifted into ditches, medians, and opposing traffic lanes without visual feedback. The temperature and wind combination prevented snow from bonding to surfaces, maintaining a continuous suspension layer at ground level. Optical conditions resembled dense fog, but with particulate matter that reflected light without transmitting it. Aviation operations ceased immediately. Buffalo Niagara International Airport recorded zero visibility for multiple consecutive hours. No instrument landing system could compensate for the complete absence of ground reference. Air traffic control suspended all operations. The phenomenon extended beyond the immediate urban core into suburban and rural Erie County, creating uniform whiteout conditions across an area exceeding 1,000 square miles. Transportation failure occurred across all vehicle categories simultaneously. Private automobiles stalled in drifts on residential streets, arterial roads, and highway systems. Approximately 5,000 vehicles were abandoned on roads throughout Erie County within the first 24 hours. Occupants either remained with vehicles or attempted to reach nearby structures. Surface streets became impassable to all traffic by the afternoon of January 28th. Snow depth variability made route planning impossible. Roads that appeared clear refilled within minutes. Buses operated by the Niagara Frontier Transportation Authority became stranded on routes. Drivers could not complete circuits or return to depots. Passengers disembarked into whiteout conditions. Commercial trucking ceased entirely. Tractor trailers jackknifed on highway entrance ramps and main lanes. The weight and profile of large trucks made them susceptible to wind force even when not moving. Overturned trailers blocked multiple Interstate 90 sections. Rail freight operations through Buffalo continued intermittently but could not connect to road distribution networks. The isolation of rail infrastructure from street-level chaos allowed trains to move through the region, but delivery to warehouses, stores, and residences became impossible. Emergency vehicle mobility degraded rapidly. Fire trucks and ambulances equipped with tire chains and enhanced ground clearance experienced the same visibility and drift problems as civilian vehicles. Response times extended from minutes to hours, then to complete inability to respond. Emergency service systems entered a state of functional paralysis by January 29. Fire departments received calls for structure fires, medical emergencies, and entrapments, but could not deploy equipment. Ambulance services suspended transport operations. Hospitals operated on internal staff only, with personnel sleeping in facility lounges and hallways. Medical procedures requiring transport to specialized centers could not occur. Patients requiring dialysis, chemotherapy, or other scheduled treatments could not reach facilities. Fire response capability dropped to walking distance from stations. Equipment remained functional but immobile. Crews responded on foot to nearby calls, carrying portable equipment. Structure fires in areas beyond walking range burned without intervention. Police departments shifted to foot patrols in limited zones near precinct buildings. Radio communication allowed dispatch of officers, but response consisted of walking through whiteout conditions. Civil order concerns were minimal due to population immobility. Crime rates dropped to near zero because potential offenders faced the same movement restrictions as law enforcement. Search and rescue operations for stranded motorists occurred sporadically when visibility briefly improved. National Guard units mobilized by New York State could not deploy effectively due to the same transportation constraints affecting civilian agencies. Military vehicles with tracked drivetrains and high ground clearance provided marginal improvement but still faced zero visibility in drift formation. Helicopter operations were impossible. The duration of the emergency exceeded the capacity of mutual aid systems to provide external support. Electrical power infrastructure experienced scattered failures beginning January 29. Wind stress on transmission lines caused outages in suburban sectors. Utility crews could not access failure points. Repair trucks became trapped attempting to reach transformer stations in downed lines. The cold temperature increased electrical demand for heating while simultaneously degrading repair response capability. Natural gas distribution networks continued functioning, but delivery of heating oil to residential and commercial tanks ceased. Fuel trucks could not navigate roads. Properties dependent on oil heat faced supply exhaustion within 3 to 5 days under continuous heating load. Fuel delivery for emergency generators at hospitals, radio stations, and municipal facilities occurred on foot using portable containers when possible. Commercial fuel depots remained stocked but isolated from distribution networks. Gasoline stations lost power or depleted underground tank inventory without resupply. The few stations with power and fuel experienced overwhelming demand from vehicles attempting to maintain operation before final immobilization. Food distribution networks failed completely. Grocery stores operated on existing inventory. Resupply trucks from regional warehouses could not reach Buffalo. Perishable goods in stores depleted within 48 hours. Bread, milk, and other high turnover items vanished from shelves. Residents unable to reach stores consumed home supplies. Water treatment and pumping systems remained operational where electrical power continued. Sewer systems functioned normally. The inability to remove solid waste from residential and commercial properties created secondary sanitation concerns as the shutdown extended beyond 72 hours. Approximately 1.2 million residents in Erie County experienced mobility restriction, ranging from limited local movement to complete confinement. Urban Buffalo residents in multi-story buildings and dense neighborhoods could not access food sources beyond walking distance. Suburban populations in single-family residential areas faced isolation in individual homes. The geographic spread of the suburban development pattern meant neighbors were often 100 to 300 feet apart, walkable under normal conditions but hazardous in whiteout cold. Deaths attributed to the storm exceeded 29 by official count, with causes including cardiovascular events during snow removal attempts, hypothermia among stranded motorists, and structure fires without emergency response. The number excluded indirect deaths from delayed medical treatment. The duration of total immobilization extended from January 28 through February 1 before limited vehicle movement resumed. Partial restoration of transportation networks required until February 5. Schools closed for the duration. Businesses ceased operations except for essential services operating on skeleton crews of personnel who walked to work or slept on site. The economic impact on the region included lost wages, business revenue suspension, and infrastructure repair costs. Federal disaster declaration occurred on January 30, authorizing military and civil defense resources, but deployment took additional days due to the same mobility constraints. The psychological impact of confinement in zero visibility conditions for populations accustomed to winter mobility was documented in subsequent surveys. The National Weather Service classified the 1977 Buffalo blizzard as an extreme lake effect wind event rather than a precipitation record. Total new snowfall during the 5-day period measured between 2 and 12 inches depending on location, amounts typical for Buffalo in late January. The defining meteorological characteristic was sustained wind velocity between 40 and 69 miles per hour for 4 consecutive days without interruption. Temperature remained below 10 degrees Fahrenheit throughout. Wind chill equivalent values reached -60 degrees Fahrenheit. The reclassification of snow already on the ground created drifts exceeding 30 feet in measured locations. Buffalo's official shutdown designation lasted from January 28 through February 1, during which all vehicular traffic was prohibited by emergency declaration. The city's snow removal fleet, fully deployed, could not maintain any roadway in a passable state. Plows were withdrawn to depots to prevent equipment loss. The storm set no single-day snowfall record, but established a benchmark for urban paralysis caused by wind-driven snow redistribution. Meteorological analysis identified the pressure system configuration as rare but not unprecedented. The duration of stable atmospheric conditions maintaining continuous wind flow occurred at a frequency estimated between 50 and 100 years for the Buffalo region. The event demonstrated that urban winter mobility depends not on snow volume alone, but on wind persistence and visibility, variables for which infrastructure design had provided insufficient tolerance.